Welcome to the happy hour. And tonight we're on with Stormy Simon. She's running for Utah State House Representative District 21. And we're going to have Stormy kind of tell us her story, what made her want to get into running for the House, and query her with any questions. And if any of you guys have questions, please shoot them into the comments and we'll ask away. All right, Stormy, so where are you from? What do you do? What's your background?
Well, those are a lot of questions. I am from Chihuahua. I grew up here, originally from just outside of Chicago, but I've been here long enough for Chihuahua to be home. So I'd say that's where I'm from. And then what's my background? I, had a variety of jobs throughout my professional career, and the main one started in 2001 at overstock.com, where I went in as a temp. And over the course of the next 12 years, built many departments, ran many departments, and then became president and member of the board.
Really?
Left there in 2016, and since then have been kind of beating my own drum. Spent some time in the cannabis industry and now running for office.
You started out as a temp at Overstock and worked your way up to like the top of the line, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
That's
Through a lot of
outstanding.
hard work and in an industry that was just beginning. Nobody really knew what e-commerce was, and it wasn't called e-commerce. It was called e-tail, and, online shopping was how we referred to it. And, we built the industry right here from Utah, or at least a good chunk of it.
So if you worked for Overstock.com, you probably know how to make a Bitcoin transaction.
Oh, your mic just went out. How to what?
How to make a Bitcoin transaction.
Oh, yeah, Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin came up. We were the first retailer to take Bitcoin as a form of payment.
So that's pretty cool, because I'm an admirer of one of the programmers there. His name is Tron. You might know him. Good guy.
It's not familiar. My dogs say hello.
Hello, dogs.
Yes.
My dog's in here as well, but so far she's right there.
It's a good thing you're in headphones, because if you heard my dog bark, you might have also started in.
yeah, might be true. So, though she did look over, so she might have heard a little bit. So you started out at the bottom in Amazon or in Overstock and climbed your way to the top, which I think that's an outstanding story. And then you worked in the cannabis industry. What part of that industry did you work in?
Well, when I left Overstock, so Overstock was great because it was something that had never been done before. And that's where my curiosity lies. I love doing new things and exploring. I'm just curious by nature, and I love learning something new. So when the states were getting ahead of the federal government, it really sparked my interest, because how many times are we going to see that in this lifetime? Not many. And I knew that there was something being done that hadn't been done before, at least, during my lifetime. And the prohibition on alcohol was one thing, but with cannabis as a medicine, it was something totally different. I moved to Denver and joined a group that had 2 medicinal dispensaries as well as a cultivation center that was rather large, and entered there just like I did at Overstock, kind of at the bottom and learning everything I could about the plant and the medicine. And through meeting various patients and working in the dispensary and finding out how people were using the plant for their ailments, it really adjusted the way that I viewed that industry. I come from capitalism, right? We are a company, we're building it, Overstock was booming. And then here I was looking at an emerging industry that had a passion associated with it, a part of medicine. And I was meeting moms who had sick kids that were utilizing cannabis to help fight their cancer or help control it. Now, not a lot of people I met that were very sick said, oh, we're just going to forego Western medicine and we're just going to take the plant. It was nothing like that. It was a fight for science and research, and the desire to get the federal government behind this so we could have science and research to support these miraculous moments that were happening, and nobody really knew why. One person would respond to the plant and another one might not. So it was very important to me to start getting that message out. Plant medicine, plants grow from our earth. So there's something very beautiful about that when they start working as a medicine. But what would be more beautiful is if, as a federal government, we could start researching this and applying it scientifically.
All right. Well, I definitely agree with those notions. Hold on, we got to do more mic adjustments, I think, here.
Am I too loud?
No, you're fine. I think we're a little low.
I think so too.
Yeah, we'll get us turned up a little bit to where we can hear us. Talk into it, Dave.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test
Way
1,
better,
2,
Dave.
Test 1 2. High, low.
Yeah, we're
left,
kind of
right.
running on new mics, so it's yeah. Anyways, so all right. So in the cannabis industry now, what brings you to want to run for politics?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the state of our union right now. A lot of arguing, a lot of things going on in the state of Utah. One of the factors for me was compromising. Once the people have voted for something, the legislature going in and saying, "Oh, we know better. We're going to adjust what you just voted on, and we're going to do it our way." And I disagree with that as a principle. I disagree with that 100%. And my entry into politics, being at the state level with the state legislature, is just like I've done everything else, taking an entry level and then working my way up.
Sounds good. Well, I think that's a good thing, and I agree with you on the way everybody voted for something, and then the legislature initially kind of shot it down and then said, well, we'll water it, we'll dilute it our way, and then put it out.
Is there something about your opponent that you're running against that disappointed you to the point where you decided to step up to the plate?
For me, it's about my path. So my opponent is whoever he is, and that's okay. We're different. You can look at us and see that we're different. Again, my stance is to come in, and even if the legislature wants to put forth a bill that they would like to be voted on in the way that they want it, that would be great. But I disagree 100% with them proposing something and doing something different after the people have voted. I can't speak for my opponent on that, but I disagree with it. Once people have voted, that's the vote, and that's how it should be, and that's how we're set up to be.
I agree.
You sound kind of libertarian to me.
Well, I think that I'm pretty nonpartisan, really. I like to talk about the issues versus where people stand, and I believe a lot of people are in the middle. You can have a libertarian point of view, a Republican point of view, or a Democrat point of view, but the idea that we all fall into these very rigid boxes, that doesn't really jive with how I live my life or how I think people, present themselves. I think everybody at some point crosses across those party lines in one issue or another.
All right.
And if we don't, we need to open our minds up to do so and to understand each other just a little bit better.
I agree. So, another quick mic adjustment, because that's what I do nowadays. Yeah. So, okay, we'll run through some of our personal questions. What's your stance on Second Amendment?
Second Amendment, it stands as it is. The right to bear arms is our right. It's been our right for many years, and that still is our right. I am, I own guns. I'm a responsible user, which means I guess I go to the gun range sometimes. I mean, that's about the only thing I do with them, but, I support it.
Good. All right. Then we've got one of my personal causes is I want to see an end or a cessation to the war on drugs. And I know that's a hard stretch in both local, state, and federal circumstances, because there is a lot of industry currently that has desires to keep that going, and not a lot of industry that seems to want to see that go away. Do you have any personal thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. The war on drugs, it's a broad statement, and drugs is open for interpretation. When I think about what is legally prescribed, OxyContin, Lortab, a lot of things that we can become addicted to versus seeking alternatives that are, being preventative, as well as something that you can manage throughout your life. Do I support heroin use? No, I don't. But I do believe that those who use may have some sort of mental illness or some reason that they're seeking outward for some sort of satisfaction. I think there's a war on many things that lead to drugs, and versus, going after someone because they've used drugs for whatever reason, versus getting ahead of that, educating and helping people get through a really hard life. That's the way to attack a war on drugs. To simply say we have a war on drugs, we want to imprison people and we want to just, lock them up and not address the issues as why. Or, saying once we as a federal government approve something to be a drug, which could be very synthetic and harmful, the war on drugs can be pretty broad.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and I think that we shouldn't leave. I think the prohibition on drugs shouldn't be left to law enforcement. It's proven to be a failure. I'd rather leave it to the medical community. And have you ever looked into what Portugal did?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's an interesting subject. They decriminalized everything, and they turned it over to the medical. So they have different programs within that, and I think picking and choosing from what they've done would be the optimal way to go. But ODs,
do they have a tolerance law? Is that?
Well, what they did is they set up kind of safe houses to use, so that overdoses are non-existent over there. Also, within these places where they can go use, where it's safe, and the drugs get tested, and the weights and everything, it's measured and regulated that way. They've also got something like Narcanon and organizations like that, where they can seek help to get off the drug. And also they've got job assistance, where they help them find jobs and try to give them that I don't know, morale boost to build them up. And that also has been found to assist in getting them off drugs when they don't have to feel like they're drains on their family or society.
Well, I'm in support of never excluding anyone from our society. And, when we look at folks who have become addicted to a drug and as a result, become homeless or become drains on their family, there has to be a way that we can embrace them and assist them back. Mm-hmm. So if that's what they're doing in Portugal and it's working, then, we do need to start addressing these types of things in a different manner, versus saying they're just criminals. They're not just criminals. They're still humans, and they're still a part of our society. And I hate to see them excommunicated from us. You know what I mean? It's just there's got to be ways to bring them back.
Yeah, it's a part of, you remove them from the criminal system and you treat them as if they have a disease instead.
Yeah.
So it's no longer dealt with on the criminal side. You can still deal with after effects, such as if there's theft or robbery or any of the ill effects on the actual, where you can point to a victim aside from the person that may be victimizing themselves. You can still treat that criminally in courts and all that, but you pull the abuse away from the criminal side and you put that in the hands of doctors.
Yes, and love goes a long way. When people still feel loved, it goes a long way, or they still feel accepted, it matters.
Yeah, and it's changed. It's gone on now for about 15 years. It's crazy it's been kept quiet over here but it has gone on for about 15 years over there. So it's an interesting study. If you got time, look it up, see what you can see, and put your mind to it. So
I absolutely will.
So, what about the defund the police movement that's currently in operation? What's your stance on that?
That's a really complicated issue. And I think it varies state by state. As far as defunding the police, you can open that up and talk about what that really means or means to each of us. But I do believe that there is a need for our training for police officers to adjust. I was raised to always go to a police officer if I needed help or I was lost or needed something. And today I think that there's some fear that comes with calling the police, or simply being pulled over for a ticket. If you're speeding, you get pulled over for a ticket, you should be able to go on your way. But the idea that you get pulled over for speeding and all of a sudden they're searching your car and they're acting as if you are a criminal, I actually have a problem with. So I'm not, defunding the police may just mean adjusting the way it currently works, giving them more resources, more training. The only tool they seem to have are ones that harm us, which are guns, tasers, things like that.
Well, if I was to bring up the war on drugs, why would they be searching your car? We end that.
Bodies.
No more searching of the cars. I seriously, that's
they're looking for the crime.
You can almost track the violence of the police force back to the initiation of the war on drugs, just like we can track the violence of the police force back to prohibition.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because if a woman says anybody, it doesn't have to be a woman, but if someone says, someone's stalking me, they're stalking me, yet nothing has happened yet, but I'm in fear of someone, the response is, well, we have to wait for something to happen. Nothing's happened. But in the case of being pulled over, you might have been speeding, but that doesn't give them a reason to search your car or have you step out of the car if you're just driving down the street. These are streets we pay for.
Yeah. I guess we would have to, those are drawn in with our, obviously those laws, whether it's civil asset forfeiture, comes from the war on drugs. The way roadside warrants, or not even roadside warrants, but roadside vehicle inspections are done. That's specifically done to find drugs all the time. Mm-hmm. They train them. Look for an old car with brand new tires, or look for a car that looks like it's sagging in the rear end, and those are the ones you seek out. Or look for this type of driver, someone that's nervous, someone that's that fits a criteria, and that's why the searches are done. And we can train away from, okay, you can't do searches in that anymore, but they're still getting their marching orders, their commendations, and their extra income for the department through the war on drugs. That it all flows through that. That's the main, except for in small towns where speeding tickets seem to pay for everything.
That's the quota.
It's the war on drugs is the common denominator amongst, police departments, and so that's where you get your searches. Breonna Taylor, that was a drug involved incident. You could argue George Floyd was. They almost all of these incidents that are boiling our nation over boil down to that. And I would hope there's a better way to do that. Of course, the violence in Chicago or any inner city where there's the that has high numbers of inner city youth killing each other, you can almost always boil that down to turf wars for drugs, because the only respite they get if they get theft or anything else is to go show violence on the street to, one, revenge, and two, send a message. And what would it be if they could call the police just like your local Walgreens would if they got robbed?
Yeah, it definitely matters. And that's where, defunding the police, it's a lot more complicated than just blaming the cops.
Yeah, we've heard.
They do have marching orders. They do have ways they were trained. And, I don't believe that all cops are bad. I think there's bad people in probably every occupation that we have, just like there's many, many good people in all that we do. But they many times they are just doing their job, but it doesn't mean it's the right job to be doing.
Okay. So we got a question from a listener here.
Okay.
Now this is kind of very local, but Carl here asks, will she crack down on Utah spending ridiculous amounts of money on useless infrastructure, for example, $1 million bike lanes in Tooele? And I know you probably won't have any influence over the city itself, but can you give him an answer?
Well, so here's what I want to say about the Utah budget. Tried to go in, tried to understand it. I think there's a way to simplify government that we can all understand it better. In regards to useless infrastructure, yes. We should never be spending our tax dollars on something useless. I also promote a healthy lifestyle, though. So if there are bike lanes and we are promoting that, and that's what Tooele wants or needs, and there's a need for that, then we should have it. But if it is indeed useless, which I know Carl feels that way, but I haven't looked into that specific issue. No, we should never be using our money, our tax dollars, in a useless way.
Ms. Stormy, have you seen the green bike strips on the roads?
I have, yeah.
Okay. All right, so
yeah.
that's what he's referring to.
The bike lanes from nowhere to nowhere. It starts at an obscure place without a parking lot or
in the middle of the road.
No, I hear him. I do understand. I don't see them being used much. I guess I can say that. There's not a lot of bikers out here.
Almost like they
don't know what initiated that.
I think what they hope they would do is they hope they would build it and they will come. It would have been better had they maybe started slower, maybe advertised biking or got with that strip mall where the guy sells bikes and say, hey, if someone...
We need a good deal.
Yeah, can you get a good deal if someone rides this to work, a voucher system, something. But they painted bike lanes that start nowhere and go nowhere.
In the middle of the road, no less. I mean, it doesn't provide a space to ride your bike.
That's true. Well, I think our streets are really wide in Tooele, and I also think that if you're riding a bike, you probably have some good sense on where to ride. You wouldn't want to be in the middle of a busy street, so you probably ride on the side of the road anyway. I'm not sure that the lanes have adjusted the bikers or their behavior, but I don't really see them being used.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I like my bike and I like to ride my bike once in a while, but I wouldn't know how to go about using those lanes other than getting in somebody's way in the road. So, I can't lie. I had the same thought process in my head when I was going to fill up my propane tank today. I'm looking at these green lines and I'm like, I wonder how Stormy would feel about those. I mean, I can understand putting a bike lane on the side of the road that gives space for the bike itself, but yeah, the green lines, what people were thinking kind of evades me on that one.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've seen them in other places much. Maybe it's just because I haven't been out for a while.
They've got a few in Salt Lake and such, but I'd have liked to have seen a study done to see. I mean, it would have been cheaper to pay $1,000 for a study to see if there's a need for them prior to painting them, and they were awful expensive.
Yeah, I don't, I think there's a way to balance, working at Overstock and running managing a big budget. You got to go with what the people want. And I don't remember hearing that the people of Tooele wanted or that there was a big move for these bike lanes. So I'm not sure where the decision lies in this sense.
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Too many happy hours.
It doesn't make sense. I don't know where it started or how it really happened.
That would be a good story, though.
It feels like another feel-good expenditure. Let's spend this money to feel good so that when when the mayor talks to the county management or maybe even the state management, they can say, look what we did. And then go out and take pictures of it. And all the tracks will be 8 inches wide on that green strip. None of them will be 2 inches wide from a bicycle.
Yeah, it seems a little excessive. It really does.
It was a feel-good expenditure, and there was no study done into it. I have never seen a bike ride on one of those. Granted, I don't live on one, so maybe there is, but I have driven on those roads. First East has the big green strip. But anyway, so let's get back to your run. You wouldn't have much control over that, except maybe you could tease the city management after they do something like that as a state senator. What's your plans when you get in there? What are you going to dig into when you win?
As a first-time candidate, there's a lot. So I've been reviewing, what does the legislature do? And last year they proposed about 511 laws. That's what they were working on. And out of that, 167 came across the governor's desk. And he signed that many, didn't he? Was it 167? And that's a lot. 511, that's more than one a day.
Yeah.
So they're hard to go through also. So as much as I've tried to study and get caught up, it's difficult to go into each one and then to decide if each one is worthy of our time. There's a lot of bureaucracy happening on our Hill. And I think in our government in general. And I'm not sure it's necessary to be so bureaucratic or to throw 511 things up. We might be a little more selective. Now, what I can't say is which ones I think were worthy and which ones I don't think were worthy, because I haven't gone through them all. I just printed them off the other day.
Well, it's 511. I mean, I don't know if you need sleep, but you could probably knock them out in a week and a half.
It's quite a few. Right. I would hope that what I'd like to dig into is a more efficient process. What I hope doesn't happen is all of a sudden we've got Democrats on one side and Republicans on the other, and they're just arguing against each other to argue against each other. What hopefully is happening is that they're coming together to make Utah a better place and bring laws forward that matter to the people of Utah. So my first few days would be spent trying to build alliances across the aisle and understand a little bit more about what 511 things may be being proposed for next year.
Yeah, it would be nice to know, 511 laws, and me as a citizen who lives here and works here and operates here, I don't know what probably 500 of them are. Do they apply to me? Do they apply to any business venture I may, enter into?
Ignorance of the law is no excuse, Jared.
But yeah, do they apply? And so if they do, would it be the case that every day except Saturday and Sunday, I would have to read 2 new laws to make sure I'm up to snuff?
Right. That's pretty much what it looks like today, as still an outsider looking in. But what I promise to do is let everybody know exactly what that looks like. I think for, as a constituent, as a citizen, I have a blind spot when it comes to what really happens up there. How are these proposed? If they're proposed simply to keep people busy, that's not good enough. Yeah. They have to be proposed for the right reasons. If we keep building bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy. And, we worked at Overstock as a cohesive team from diverse backgrounds with all kinds of different voices there. We did it successfully. And the goal was to have less bureaucracy. Like, let's take the shortest path. Let's get, for the greater good, let's make our decisions that way. And so I would like to expose any blind spots that we have as citizens or voters have. And that's what I would do. I would share the learnings, and hopefully, we cut out bureaucracy. I don't know anybody in the land, in our nation, that sits and goes, you know what? I think we need some more laws. Let's create more laws and let's make them complicated. And everybody, get as detailed as you can and as minute as you can, and make these really strict lines, or bicycle lanes for everything. No, we are in a land of freedoms. And while I agree that there does need to be laws, we need police officers. There's lots of reasons why we need some of the things we have. But the idea of just creating bureaucracy or keeping, as that's what I would be doing as a legislator, voting on laws, proposing laws, creating laws. Let's make sure they're laws that's worthy of it. Let's make sure they're laws that enable people to have freedoms, not to restrict them.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like government makes continuation of laws or new laws to kind of pat themselves on the back and justify their own existence.
So we were talking about the new constitutional amendments that are up for vote. It was like A through, I don't know, G or F or something like that. And a lot of them are just, hey, let's change the wordage to gender neutral words and feels type busy work. And I can't help but think, like, how many lawyers do we have on the payroll just sifting through legislation, putting hours on the time clock, just for, just exactly like you said, for feels and busy work and just trying to stay relevant.
Sounds like.
And then how about they propose that and then we vote on it and they go, well, we really were thinking something else. So all the work that goes into creating it, and then the work of those lawyers that go into the creating of it, and then everybody getting themselves up to speed and voting on it, and then we vote and use our voice, and then they say, well, it really wasn't what we were thinking. We don't know that you guys know better. Us 105 people up here on the Hill, we probably know better. So let's spend all our time again getting together, maybe come up with what we wanted in the first place and doing it our way. If that's the way it's going to be done, they can save all of us a lot of time and don't have us vote. They can start dictating to us, and that's what it feels like can happen. And to me, that's a lot of unnecessary busy work.
Yeah, it does feel unnecessarily like there's extraordinary control by the church. And I don't want to come out and say the church is doing it, but it feels like it.
There's such great things that living in a state like Utah, with the church being so dominant as they are, they keep it clean. They contribute, they have safe havens for people. They make sure we're fed. There's some really great things. But when it comes to the state, it's in our Constitution, the Utah Constitution, that the church and state shall be divided, that there will be no dominant church that can influence the state. And that needs to be carried through. It has nothing to do with coming down on anyone's religion. That's not it. There should be a very strong and bold line between a church and any type of political party. And that should be the same in Utah.
So on the
if
topic,
there are compromises, I'd like the Catholic Church and the Baptist Church and, the born again Christians and everybody in the room.
So on the topic of the church, how do you feel about the DABC?
But in what regard?
About state control of the selling of alcohol. I think that when you're 21 years old, if that's the law, and you're 21 years old, I think that's where some bureaucracy comes in, is a lot of control. And they do that for control.
that to me, like having, having the beer companies make 3.2% beer to sell in our stores, and all of that is just bureaucracy, as if people aren't going to control themselves. Whereas in the state of you can look at other states that have much freer alcohol laws. They sell wine in their stores and they're not running mayhem, right? They're doing okay. People are, for the most part, good and responsible. Because you sell wine in a grocery store doesn't all of a sudden make somebody irresponsible. I don't drink. I'll have a drink every now and again, but I don't drink. They can sell wine in the grocery store. It's not going to make me buy it. They can sell 6% beer in the grocery store. It doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. It doesn't mean I'm then all of a sudden going to enter into this other life, but I'm an adult, so I can buy it if I want to. And that should be my choice.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's kind of a holdover law from the Prohibition era.
Yeah. I don't really agree with it being, owned by the state or controlled by the state. But, I think there may be bigger fish to fry. What I disagree with more there is the control over the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jared and Dave, I'm just
My
going to
brother
pop in
Greg.
real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to go back when Stormy's talking about people understanding. When she was at Overstock, she started the term customer care, and she had her agents talk. Her saying was, when you're talking to somebody on the phone, act like you're talking to your grandmother, because she knew they were talking on a new internet, a new system, and she wanted people to understand. And so when she's elected, and on her website, we guarantee you would be able to go to Stormy's website and see what she stands for. And you don't have to go through the mess you got to go through to see what anybody voted for.
I like that.
Yeah, constituent care.
Constituent care, that's the term.
Constituent care.
We will have constituent care for the government.
The idea that, that's what I said when I was saying, I want to provide transparency. I want to shine a light on whatever it is our lawmakers are doing. And that does trickle down to the constituents. We have 3.3 million people in our state. At Overstock, we had 40 million customers. We could communicate with each one of them efficiently and clearly. I think that's important, clearly. And there isn't any reason why we shouldn't be able to clearly communicate with every single person in the state with our laws, whether it be regarding alcohol or anything else.
I like that. And I like boiling down all the bureaucracy and getting it under control, letting the people know what's going on, what the fight is about.
When you talk about customer care, when I ask these questions, I know the DABC may not seem like a big deal to some people, but I want you to think about this here. There's a lot of people here that do drink, and I remember one time someone tried to get in their car when they ran out of beer, and I said, no, you can't. And that person could have killed somebody. Now, in a world without a DABC, that person could just get on their phone and order it through an app, have it delivered by Uber Eats or something, save a life. And if we can save just one life through freedom, I'm a happy camper, because A, it's freedom, and B, it's someone's life. And I feel like the state, in their means of control and socialism, these communist networks and cooperatives that want to control the marketplace are killing people. And maybe it's indirectly, but think about how many people get into car accidents in the winter trying to go get a lottery ticket, or the greenhouse gases we're emitting just to cross the border line to grab a lottery ticket. We're being inefficient as a species by clinging on to these communist institutions. And I just think that it's important for me, for my candidate that I want to vote for, understand that, because we can save lives through freedom. Freedom is always the best option, when it comes to the marketplace. Just like Overstock.com was free to take Bitcoin and be innovative there, or you were free to exercise your communication methodologies to your customers. That made an improvement for Overstock.com. It made it a leader in its industry. And if the government told you no, you wouldn't be able to do those things.
That's exactly right. I agree with you 100% on the idea of letting adults be adults. You know, we understand laws. We know when we're breaking them. Now, sure, people are still going to push the limit, whatever they're going to do. But for the most part, people are not walking around as criminals. We're walking around as responsible citizens, and we should be treated and respected as such. And that goes in line with any alcohol laws that were in Utah. You know, I remember back in the day, not saying how old I am, but I do remember like the brown bag law. Do you remember that? You guys probably don't.
Yes, I do.
Right. So they said, we're going to stop serving alcohol at the bars, and we're just going to serve like a Coke. And then you can bring your own bottle in, your whole bottle of alcohol into the bar. Well, what does that mean? That means when you leave the bar, you're either leaving with an empty container, or what I saw people doing was drinking more at the end of the night. Like, oh, geez, I don't want to have to take this home. And they reversed that because it really didn't make sense. You know, people will behave responsibly, and those that won't. And it's not going to matter what obstacles you put in front of them. If you want to behave crazily, you're going to do it. And that's going to be by nature. It's not going to be because somebody told you how to behave or not to behave.
I like
and
that
that's
answer.
where I think freedoms come in.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, that is a good answer.
Well put.
Well, is there any other message you want to get out?
Well, I'm sure there's tons of them. Sure, that was a big question. What can you narrow it down a little bit?
Well, we want to know what we understand you want to. It sounds like you kind of got sparked on by the medical cannabis legalization in Utah and how that got diluted pretty heavily.
Well, it wasn't just that though, right? There were a few bills the few props that did that. The Medicaid, the gerrymandering was another one. And it has nothing to do with cannabis. So I was out canvassing this Saturday, and we met some guys in a truck. They pulled over to talk to us. And in the end, they said, well, I think she's just going to all be about cannabis. Cannabis is legal in our state. It's over.
Yeah.
You know, Utah, there's 28 states now that have medicinal laws, 11 that have adult usage. The fight is over. The stigma is also over. I don't need that to be my platform.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yes,
and
it is true.
But I would support you on that one alone, because I think anytime we can take a little bit of the violence out of government interaction, the better. And I think complete decriminalization. I want complete legalization and decriminalization of all the other drugs. I'm a radical, and I don't use any drugs except for alcohol and nicotine and caffeine.
Right. And if they were legal to you or available to you, you know, like myself, alcohol is available. I don't drink.
Yeah.
You know, I could go to the doctor right now and get Percocet for pain. I elect to not do that. So, you know, I live my life by my own guiding principles. And I think that adults do that. You know, I think the way around that with our youth is education, education, education. And in the states that say again?
And parents. I think parents need to step up and be parents.
But allowing the parents to freely educate and supplying them with the tools they need to do that is important. It's important as a state. But in these states that have adult usage, opiate prescriptions have gone down, and I believe in the medicinal usages as well. But I remember looking at some data, maybe 2018 for Denver and Washington, and opiate prescriptions had gone down by like 20 to 25%. So had teen usage. So, you know, it opens your eyes, like, wait a minute. Once we stop saying this is bad, nobody do it, and we take the curiosity out, we start saying, look, it's a medicine, people with anxiety, people with pain, there's other ways to use this, it trickles down through our society and people get more responsible. And that's a really important thing for us all to learn. But as far as Utah go, the fight's over. The stigma for cannabis is over, and no one should continue to look at people who have utilized cannabis as a form of medicine, which even with recreational use, it's a form of medicine. It doesn't agree with everybody. And I think that that's one of the things I'd like to be clear on my campaign is this isn't all about marijuana. This is about equality, prison reform. I have a problem with prisons being privatized and someone making money off it and us looking for criminals to fill them. That's a big deal for me. I work with a group called Mission Green that's here in Utah with Weldon Angelos, who was a music producer and got in trouble on a first offense for selling cannabis or getting cannabis to a police officer. Now, this was a nonviolent crime. He was charged with 105 years in federal prison and sentenced to 55 years. He served 13 before he got out on the Compassionate Act in 2016. His mission now, Mission Green, is to free all prisoners in federal prison or every prison for nonviolent cannabis crimes. And it's really important because what happened to me in the cannabis industry was watching people come in, capitalize this, make money while people are still being arrested across our nation and put in prison for this. Yet some people are allowed to actually make money off it. And for me, that just opened my eyes. Can you grab the dog? He's right here. To prison reform and where those conflicts really lie. Prisons should not be profit centers. This is not where we want our tax dollars going.
It costs $60,000 a year for me as a taxpayer to house a prisoner. So if you're in there for selling good marijuana to a police officer for 115 years, you do the math. 60 times 115. That's a lot of my tax dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still happening today while we are legalizing it. It's really important for the federal government to come out and take a stance on this. But in our state and in many states, this is a place where we got ahead of the federal government. Bureaucracy became less, and the power to the states became more. And there is nothing wrong with that, other than people still going to prison.
Yeah.
And science being restricted, the research being restricted. That's a problem too.
Yeah. Now, okay. Right now, we're closing up on an hour, and we can go longer if you want, but we do have some questions rolling in. You ready?
I'm ready. I can't believe it's been an hour. Yeah.
Well, we're closing up on it.
It happens.
It's been 45 minutes, but all right, everyone, send your questions in and we'll read them.
Holly's got a question. You want to read it, Jared?
Yeah. Holly said, how do you see yourself connecting with the conservative constituents in the county? And she's running for state senate, so she's running for a district.
Me?
Yes.
I connect with the conservative constituents every day. I was raised here. I don't see myself any different than them. I'm a conservative person just as much as I'm a liberal one. Fiscally conservative, absolutely. I feel like I connect with them every day. I don't see, something that bothers me today in our country is this division. We are all Americans. We all should have at least something in common with that. And one of those things should be peace. I plan to listen to them, and we have a lot of conservative folks in Tooele. And if I'm elected or when I'm elected, to be on the Hill, it's their voice. I don't always have to be right. It has to be for our greater good. And that's where I think nonpartisan politics come in. Is I understand where I come from. I've been here a really long time. And I don't scoff at other people's opinions just because they may differ from my own. A decision that I might make may be different than what this district may want. And that would be important to me, what they want.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Well, I'm an ardent Trump supporter, I guess, and I'll tell you what, you connected to me just now. All of our issues seem to align on providing more freedoms to the people on the state level. And when it comes to connecting with conservatives, I think you'll be surprised how many conservatives don't want a communist system to operate our alcohol industry, that don't want to have to drive through state lines to grab a lottery ticket. There's a lot of issues that the quote conservatives are supposedly putting upon us as citizens that we don't want. And you know, you sound like a very freedom orientated person to me, and so you connected to me. I just want to let you know
I
that.
hope so. Thank you. That
Yeah.
that means a lot to me. It does. And the idea that every single person is always going to be happy and every single thing is always going to go our way. Everything you've ever experienced in life should tell you that's not going to happen. It's going to be, you're going to have to give and take a little bit. You're going to win here, but you might have to give here. But as long as you keep the idea of our country in mind, which is 240 years ago, we started an experiment and we decided we would have a free land, the freedom to be different colors, which all needs to be respected, different religions from different places, and we'd all come together and make it work. And we've done a really good job. Like, we are still great. America is still great. We can't forget that. We can't fight amongst each other with this. It's complicated to do what we've done as a country. To allow the opportunities that we allow to everyone as a country is not easy. And yet 240 years later, we're doing it. We have our obstacles. We have things we have to overcome and work through. And not everybody's going to be happy every bit of the time. But they need to be respectful of each other. And they need to learn to compromise, just like in a marriage, in a relationship. It's all give and take. And that's what makes us great. That's what makes us great. We shouldn't be butting heads. We should be saying, we can do this.
We have another question. We'll let Dave read this one.
All right. How does she feel about the direction her party has taken towards socialism versus capitalism? And, judging from what you've told me so far, I can kind of guess, but go ahead and answer that one. That's a good question.
Yeah, I feel like there's a balance needed for both. Capitalism is part of what we're founded on, our ability to be able to do this. On the other side, we have people that are starving today. And I don't agree with that either. That we have to find a balance. Is it, I don't know that balance. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot that I need to learn about government and about how our budgets are spent and how everything works on the inside and systemically in order to really answer that question. But I do think there needs to be a better balance. I do. I support both. I feel like, the party is the party. In order to run for politics, you have to join one. That doesn't mean that I'm 100% of anything. I'm 100% American, and I'm 100% for this country, and 100% committed to finding answers. How do I feel about both parties? I think they go extreme on either side. I think they're fighting too much. And I think it's doing the country as a whole. I think it's a mistake. I think it's wrong for us to be doing that.
I think you're right. There seems to be a big disservice done between the parties and their arguments, and it's not the first time that it's happened. You can almost track to where this incident started, but it's not the first time.
Right, and it won't be the last. We all just have to be committed to getting through it together. And that's it. That's where, can you be a Democrat and support capitalism? Absolutely. Can you be a Republican and support socialism? Absolutely.
I think the Republicans we have now have proven that point.
Well, just try to be a Republican and talk about taking away Social Security. I mean, can you think of a more communist program as Social Security? I don't think I could.
And so you are for it or against it?
I buy Bitcoin.
There you go.
I
You know,
think
and that's where the freedoms come in,
I
right?
think
You
Social
can
Security
have
is
to
the
take care of
ultimate.
everything.
It's the ultimate Ponzi scheme. By definition, it's a Ponzi scheme. You force people to give, except though it's worse than a Ponzi scheme because it's committed through force, through violence. So you force people to give money in to pay people who gave money in, that paid people who gave money in, and eventually someone's going to be left holding that bag. There's got to be better ways to deal with that. I think education, self-reliability, and self-responsibility is the ultimate way for any nation to survive. We climbed to the very top of the chain of nations through people who had that intuitively inside them, and we've been on kind of a creep backwards since then.
So I was on welfare. I was a young mother,
Mm-hmm.
and when I got divorced, I had to rely on the welfare system. And my parents had paid into that for, all the years that they worked, and they told me to hold my head up high and use it as a crutch, but not use it as, my legs, right? But to utilize what
Nice.
the system was offering me to get to my next step. And that's exactly what I did. And I was so grateful because I needed that. And then what happens? I go on to have really great success.
Yeah, well, there's other ways that can be done where there's not a gun brought to that conversation.
Well,
The
no one
welfare
has
system,
one.
anything that's done through taxes is a gun. Because if you don't pay your taxes, eventually a gun shows up to that party. And if you refuse all those orders along that path, you get killed. That's just the way it goes. Where I think voluntary donations, churches, community centers, things like that can pick that up. I like that model because there's not a gun. There's no violence involved in that. Whereas, first of all, with a government-ran system, there's a gun introduced into the conversation, and then you're trying to catch water in that colander of government, which everyone is pretty sure knows that's a waste. They waste as much as they spend wisely.
Well, I would say that it's a waste too. However, I do have a piece of me that likes to make sure people are taken care of. Now, do I feel like our taxes need to increase drastically for that to happen? No, but I will say I benefited from both sides of that system. I benefited. If it wasn't for the welfare program as it existed way back then, the program I was a part of is no longer it doesn't work that way anymore. But I also experienced the idea that I could walk into somewhere, the American dream, work really hard and climb a ladder, and then pay into that very system that you speak of, that helps support someone like me. And, if something doesn't put you in the middle like that does, I don't know what will.
All right, we got a comment here. He starts out, he worries that voting another Democrat will just be another sheep and vote the same in the House. Humana, but, so he goes on with a couple of anecdotes, but he says, as long as she gets kegs, pot, and alcohol in our store, she would be good. If she can fix I-80 in Lehigh, she would for sure get my vote.
Well, listen, any type of the roads, and especially with this county, needs some attention.
What?
Those dollars are spent, needs attention.
I drive Burmester once in a while. My shocks are great.
But the idea of the freedoms, the latter part of his question or statement, with the freedoms that we are allotted as adults, those are freedoms we're allotted as adults, and we should be able to make our own choices.
I like it.
Stormy, if you win and you become the incumbent on the next election, would you still come on the show as of what you've seen so far?
Well, of course, why wouldn't I?
It's a good question. Why wouldn't you?
I like that. Well, incumbents run away from us.
They do?
Oh, yeah. Well,
why
they
do
don't.
You think? Why is that?
For some reason, they don't like holes poked in their ideology.
We should all have holes poked in our ideology. I
Yeah,
think that,
but incumbents fear it. It's it's a thing. We got another one. This is a good one from Milena Russell. What would you do if the majority of the people who have more conservative view want you to vote a certain way, and you don't agree, or it goes against how you want to vote?
I have to listen to the voice of the people. I mean, it matters in this county. It's the voice. I understand the representation. Would it be a struggle? Sure. If it goes against the core of my being, sure. But I'm always open. I'm always open to have holes poked in anything that I believe. I would represent the greater good. You have to find a way to separate your ego from the politics. You have to. I'm not walking into this going, I'm the smartest person in the room. No. Equality, fairness, understanding what people want. I know I'm one of many. I'm one of many. The many. We choose our zip codes. I'm living in Tooele. I choose that. I can live other places. I choose Tooele. If the voice of Tooele is something different than mine, and it's a majority, that's a great consideration. And I couldn't say I would vote my way. I would have to say, you have to go in with the idea that you are representing many.
Well, I like the idea that there's new tools available to politicians nowadays that none of them tend to use. And one of that tool is this fancy internet where you can get on there and do a weekend poll. If people feel passionately one way or another, they can hop on and they can even, it's simple, put your writing in green or put your writing in red. And you don't even have to read what they say. It can just be, I got this many green, this many red. It seems like the people who are passionate about this want this. And then...
Yeah, the internet allots us a lot more communication than we ever used to have. And I think that in the cases, let's say, the voice was one thing, and, what if I did do something else? If that happened, if there was a blind spot as to why the vote had to go a different way, that's the part that should be shared. If it's a budgetary reason, if there's something that once you're in the inside, you get more insight to, that's where I think the constituent care comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as you lean towards liberty, you'll always, have a soft spot in my heart.
Well, it's the truth, and I think that's what we should all be leaning towards.
Now, biggest question of all, this one comes from me. You gonna get gray pantsuits, Kim Jong-un style?
I already have them.
Do you? Like button up to the collar, walk.
No.
I'm just taking a jab at Hillary. I mean,
yeah, I dress Stormy style no matter where I go.
All right, how does Stormy dress?
A little bit, conservative and a little bit rock and roll.
Oh, okay, I dig it. Mullet. She cruises mullet.
Yeah, I think that. So what I learned at Overstock is I could sign a $3 million contract in my sweats or a pantsuit. I could sign it while I was laughing or while I was serious. Mm-hmm. And it didn't change the content of that contract. The contract is what it is. And that's where, when I was younger and I used to look at people in politics, and honestly, even into my young adulthood, probably to the last decade, I would look at them and say, oh, that's not me. That's just not me. But what I realized is that needs to be me. It needs to be us. The minute you're not identifying with your public officials is the minute you should start running for office.
I like it.
Now, also with that statement that with this question that the constituent asked, keep in mind that, some politics are going to offer dessert. Other politics will offer broccoli. And in the long run, broccoli is better for you if you have to have a sustaining diet. And if you can communicate that, I think that is the successful equation, because there's a lot of dessert being shoved down the constituents' throat here, and I really think you have a good plate of Brussels sprouts on the way, and I'm excited. I'm feeling like you might have my vote.
It's
Oh,
Utah.
thank
It's
you
not.
so much. That's
It's
the
not
best
dessert.
compliment.
It's funeral potatoes.
Well, we all like those best.
That's
So
that's
even if
Mormon
the
dessert.
calories are high, if someone's
Yeah.
offering up a plate of funeral potatoes, I got to eat it.
That's
But,
That's
you
Mormon
know,
wife competition right there.
have that recipe somewhere.
All
But I
right.
think you're right. It's more explaining and being able to tell people, constituents, the why behind it. And that's what I feel as a citizen that has been lacking. And it's not easy to find. It's not easy to go back and see what someone voted on, and I'm good on the internet. Like, I'm great on it. And I've struggled to get answers that I'm looking for. And it takes time. And then it's written in a language that, quite frankly, none of us read that way. You know, we don't read like lawyers. There's ways to explain things, and the way that we consume them, and that all needs to be addressed. Simplification.
Yeah, I like it. What kind of dog you got in there?
Well, the one that won't shut up is a little King Charles Spaniel. I think he's going to come making a. It's
Yeah,
tough.
let's have a look. Oh boy, look at that
He's
one.
really, yeah.
Oh,
He's a lap dog. He's my little comfort dog.
well, he looks like more than a lap dog. He's kind of big. My dog
Well,
is.
he's overweight right now. He needs more broth. He's been having too much dessert, and he needs some Brussels sprouts.
You've been feeding him well. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like dogs. And he's adorable. We got another question, again from the same lady. You seem pretty set in your views. What if the majority were against cannabis?
I think the majority. Well, first of all, we know they weren't based on their vote.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with cannabis is just like I committed to learning about the plant as a medicine and our endocannabinoid system. It is, if Utah wasn't ready for it, they wouldn't have voted for it. But there is science out there that does explain why. And just like I have the choice of when I have pain, of whether or not I go fill a Percocet prescription, people have the choice of whether or not they utilize cannabis in their lives. And that's where the liberty and the freedom come in, is that the majority gets to choose not to, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't be made available for the minority.
Yeah, well, I think the majority decided against. I think the majority was tired of seeing swollen prisons, swollen court systems. I mean, right now, think about it. If you have to go to court for a traffic ticket and you've got to go in there and sit all day to have them close at 3:00, you're last on the docket to have to come back the next day because there is a line of cannabis violations or other violations that may have dealt with the black market industry surrounding it in front of you. And
yeah, I think, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
we're talking, for the majority, those are victimless crimes. And I think most of the population sees that. Now, granted, I understand hardly any of the population has come around to see the war on drugs as I have. But, you know, my view on it comes from a different parameter or whatever else. But I think everyone's kind of sees the cannabis side of it.
Yeah, cannabis is a really interesting. First, when we speak about plants and the government owning them, that's a dangerous slope to go down.
Yeah, making something that just will grow wild illegal. That's crazy.
It grows like a weed.
So I want to state that I'm against cannabis, but I am not against people choosing what to do with themselves. And I won't be using cannabis, but I won't let, if I can prevent it, I won't let my government tell people not to. But I might discriminate against somebody who uses cannabis for hiring on a job or hanging out with them. It's okay for me to personally discriminate against people based off of their actions, I feel, as an individual. But if that's the actions that they want to take, I don't think the government should bring a gun to that conversation.
And I ask a question about if someone is using cannabis for a chronic illness and it alleviates their pain or helps them better get through a day, And do you use that same discrimination towards someone that has to take an opiate every day? Would you hire them instead?
Well, it depends on the job market. I mean, who's applying for the jobs? I'll sift through it. I'll take my options and weigh them carefully. But if it's medicinal purposes, and that's my option, that's my option. But if I can choose somebody who's not using cannabis for a job, I probably will.
Yeah, I hope we need to start viewing this as a medicine, and that's your freedoms too, right? But educating about plant medicine as a whole and research is part of our next step in medicine.
No, I can't discriminate against people's medicines. Otherwise, I would. But if I could, I would. If I could list the medicines that people are taking and I got my job applicants, yeah, I would. Oh, this guy's on Prozac. This guy's, all right. Well, if you're on high cholesterol meds, that's one thing because I'm on those too. But, but yes, individual freedom works both ways. It's got its negatives and its pros, but there's nothing better than freedom. And if someone doesn't like the fact that I would discriminate against you as someone who uses medicinal marijuana when I have an option with someone who does not, then you have the right to go elsewhere and point your finger and flip me the bird. It's okay. And
honestly, I want to know about their marijuana use as much as I care about their alcohol use.
mm-hmm.
I don't feel a need to know.
Something about cannabis. First of all, the more science that goes into it, the more we're able to extract that one cannabinoid out of hundreds and hundreds that actually gets you high or alters your head.
Mm-hmm.
But cannabis as a plant was named after, or our endocannabinoid system, cannabinoid, was named after cannabis. And the reason being is that those 9 points within our body, the matrix of that, or the way it's comprised, mimics that of the plant. And that is why sometimes people take it, like these children with cancer, and they have a better result with their tumors than without it. That's why we mimic each other. We actually mimic this plant. And that is why science, research, and the ability to dive deeper so people aren't just going around getting high matters. But it's not just that plant. There's other plants that have CBD in it.
I'm fine if they go around and get high. I honestly don't do it when I need you to complete a job.
Oh, there you go, discriminating.
Being drunk or high.
Don't do it before surgery.
Would be an issue, but other than that, your time is your time. As long as you don't bring that onto us, I'm good with it.
Carl's switching subjects here.
Yeah, okay. Carl's digging deep.
Carl.
Let's go.
All right, Dave, you want to read it?
I'll with pleasure. Carl, I love this question, and this is a good one. All right, enough cupcake questions. With the recent riots, including one in Utah, would you condemn rioters and the burning of cities, or go with the rest of the Dems and call them mostly peaceful?
Well, I condemn any riots or burning of cities. Of course. Any destruction of our cities is not, it's not okay. That's where law comes into play. But the ability to protest or peacefully walk down a street, I absolutely support. I support that for all groups.
What about when they block traffic?
Well, that can be dangerous.
And
that's where
it's violating another person's rights.
Yes.
You're detaining
I don't
them
believe
just as if a police officer pulled you over for no reason and searched your car for 30 minutes. The protesters are doing the exact same thing. They're committing the same act they don't like.
Well, there is such a thing as a peaceful protest, and there is a way to do so without stopping traffic or disrupting everybody else's lives.
Yeah, park strip, hold your signs. When the red light goes on the traffic, run out, wiggle your signs, jump back on the park strip, let everybody go about their business, and you'll win more people over. You make a
They
guy,
can always take the bike lane.
Yeah. Well, if you make a guy late for work, or God forbid he gets fired because he's late for work, he's not going to be a supporter for long.
That's right. That's right. But no, we have to keep our city safe. We have to, not burn things.
I like it. All right. So, again, we've got a lively lady in here. She's got another one.
You've got quite the fan club going on here.
Yeah,
They are questioning you, and they are wondering, and I think you're going to be reaching across aisles.
They're grinding down. I like it. And
Okay.
they're not grinding down in a bad way.
Good.
But before we get to Milena again, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, but that's a
Holly Molina.
Milena. It's a beautiful name. We've got Holly. Do insurance companies cover jobs where cannabis is allowed?
I'm not sure I understand. Do they cover jobs where like if you're a forklift driver?
What are you talking? Private insurance, like say the insurance you buy through business? I think insurance will match what the economy provides.
I mean, that's
Yeah, I don't
personal
believe
choice.
insurance covers cannabis today. I don't know of any insurance companies where you can go in and say, I have University of Utah insurance. I don't think I could walk into a dispensary and have that insurance be covered.
Oh, is that what she's asking? Cover jobs where cannabis is allowed. I don't know.
Well, but I do know at Overstock that when you had a job at the time, this was before medicinal cannabis was legal in the state of Utah. We didn't drug test our employees. However, there were jobs that did require drug testing. Forklift operator was one of those jobs. And in that sense,
I think that's an OSHA requirement, so I don't think Overstock was making their own laws on that. I think OSHA requires any
exactly
damage
right.
over a certain amount of monetary or weighted value requires a drug test to follow up to match with OSHA's trackings.
That's going to be one of those legalese things that's going to have to happen once the industry is so standardized.
Holly, I
government
think
job.
I think on insurance, like if you're going to go through Blue Cross or whatever, I think that's going to be an economic standard that gets adjusted and met depending on how the culture moves.
Yes. I
good
think that
question.
has to play out
That
with
is a
federal
very good
government
question.
weighing in at some point.
That is a very good question. I'd like to see the government get out of the insurance industry because, God forbid, they screw that up like they screw everything. Government does one thing well: they turn gold into shit, and that's it. All right.
Well, I hope you don't. I hope when I get elected, you don't think that I'm that.
Oh, I'm printing you a T-shirt to wear underneath your pantsuit. Your gray, made out of a drapery pantsuit. Now, Milena, on to her next question. I agree that people have freedoms. My point is that you can't say that you will always vote with the majority. You will sometimes vote with your personal beliefs, especially if it is something you personally believe in. I think her question is if the majority wants something that goes against your core values.
Would I vote? So I wish. So I understand what she's saying. I do. I support the Mormon Church and everything they stand for in this state. I do not support them having a voice in our state government. In those moments, do I feel like a compromise with the church when we're talking about laws that affect everyone in the state is fair? No, I do not. That's one issue that, while I support the church and I love what they do for our state, as we said, I would push back there every single time. It would be with any church. It would be hard, Milena. It'd be so hard. I wish there was an example, and I'm trying to think of something where, cannabis might be a good one. I've learned enough about this as a medicine to firmly believe in it as an alternative medicine, not as a competitor with alcohol, but as a medicine. In that case, the majority may say, we don't know that yet. They have not been exposed to what I've been exposed to, or done the research that I've done, or met with the people that I've met with. I've sat in UCLA with doctors that are studying this for children's cancer. I've sat with doctors from Israel who've been studying this plant as a medicine for a couple decades now. And in that sense, if I went into that with more information, where I felt like I did have more information, you're right, I'd have to vote with what I knew. But even with that, the transparency and the ability to share that with constituents and put light into something that maybe hasn't been seen, or if it was a budgetary issue and I had more insight than maybe what the majority was saying, I would share that. But you do have a great point, and I don't want to minimize it. I would listen 100%.
And you would change.
You know, there were plenty of times at Overstock where I had an idea of how something that would be done, and then through the voice of many, changed my mind, and I saw the greater good, and that doesn't go away for me.
And that's
You
how
know,
you keep it.
any decision I've ever made has always been better with more people's voices influencing it. And that's where, you know, I don't plan to leave that at the door.
Holly,
There's only one thing. The only one thing she won't change. Go Bears.
Yeah, I will vote for my football team every
We'll
time.
go Bears.
oh yeah, I'm a Bears fan as well.
Go Bears.
Works out well.
Bless you.
Yeah, bless me, bless
Dicka.
bless my sorry soul. Gosh, it's sad. Anyway, so Holly, she asks, if you were injured in an accident, would your company insurance cover you if you have smoked recently? I think as it stands right now, that's marked out in the insurance policy. I don't know if that's a purview of any government at this time.
I know when
If
I've
you're
witnessed it.
if
and
you're inebriated because of marijuana, I think they would probably cover you the same if you were inebriated with alcohol.
they're definitely
Okay,
looking.
it's not. I don't believe they will.
Yeah, and I get that's probably a policy thing. Now, we've got a high five for you. Ricky Mahan, she used to work with you. She
Yep.
says, Carl, believe me, they do. I worked 10 years with her. She's everything we need, I promise you. So,
Aw.
I tend to vote for businessmen and businesswomen, people who've been in the free market economy, people who have made substantial differences in the economy. I have so much more respect for that than, say, like lawyers or something, you know?
what?
Phew, glad I didn't go to law school.
Melanie, she says, I like her a lot. She's smart, a breath of fresh air for Utah, especially for representing Tooele. I'm tired of career politicians. I want fresh and new. I never vote straight ticket. I'm a conservative. So
Thank you, Melanie.
there's 2 votes, and it sounds like Carl's bang on, so 3 votes. Sounds
I
like
love you,
you've got
Carl.
us. So
Let me ask
5
a difficult one. Let me ask a really difficult one. So here, we're in Utah, and I'd say one of the biggest issues with politics, the biggest question for a lot of my friends and myself, I want to hear your stance on government paid for or sponsored abortions through services. What do you feel about that particular issue?
Government paid for?
Like if the government decides, hey, let's send $1 million for Planned Parenthood for the abortion process.
Well, one, I think Planned Parenthood is great educationally. Abortions have gone down. I believe abortions, well, I don't believe this, it's a fact. They've gone down as more education comes forward. And I think that is key when it comes to discussing abortions. We need to educate people about sex. We need to have conversations with our children early about what this is, what it all means. Now, there are cases in which I support abortions, which are rape, incest, and any other place. It's about education. And that's where I stand.
I like it. I may be personally pro-life, but I never want to restrict abortions I believe I'm an individualist, so I'm pro-life in my own life. That's just myself if I have a choice.
Everyone is
matter.
pro-life. This isn't,
Yeah.
abortion shouldn't be considered a pro-death thing. It should be considered an
I don't know.
educational process.
I've seen some of their marches and protests and shout your abortion. Well, that turned a lot of people away from it. So I guess it did the opposite of what they wanted. But I would never want to restrict it. On the same note, I would never want to force people that morally object to it to donate into any coffer that pays for it.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
All right. So we got more. Holly, again, how would you encourage more businesses to come to our county?
Oh my gosh. I think Tooele is so prime for businesses right now. We have the space, we have the workforce, and there should be some tax incentives for them. We need to address the roads coming in here. We really do. I think that's a big hindrance for us. But as far as who we are as a county, we have some of the best people out here. We stay here too. We grow up here and we stay here and we raise our families here. I would love to see more businesses coming in, but I also I think what keeps us sticky is the fact that we still have our rural feel and our farmers out there that are doing the true, like the beginning of capitalism and the farmers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The OGs. And I appreciate that too, but tax incentives, we have the workforce. We really do. And we have people that are true to here. And
Yes,
I would
we
love
do.
to see us get
And
a
that'll
few
make
more.
the usage on those roads a little lighter if we keep them here.
Right. Yeah, let's keep them here. Let's keep our dollars here. We go to Salt Lake and we spend a lot of money. I'd like to keep it within our circle as much as we can.
Now, what do you think about the Port Authority that's incoming to Utah? Would you try to argue to get some of that brought closer out here to the county?
That's a touchy subject, right? There's a lot of influences that are going to happen with the inland port, and some of that's going to be increased traffic on I-80. We've got some fossil fuels that are going to bring in trains and all the things that are going to happen. I do applaud when Utah's economy has opportunities to grow. I do hope that some of those opportunities hit Tooele. I hope that there are job opportunities and more for us.
Yeah, I would like to know what the footprint is, what the available footprint, because we can stretch Port Authority further west on I-80 and reduce impact on the towns and communities that people are living in.
Trains reduce the fossil fuel footprint. Plus, the more trucks we can take off the road, the better.
More trucks we take out of Salt Lake. Yeah. I-15's ridiculous.
Yeah, I just started reading about the inland port, and I'm trying to understand both sides of that.
Got another question from Carl. So would you have to step away from your business? Wouldn't it be a conflict of interest if you're making and voting on laws affecting your business? Carl, are you talking about the cannabis studies the cannabis stuff she did? I don't know. Are you still involved in the cannabis?
Nope, I'm not. I work as an executive director for Mission Green that we spoke about.
Okay.
But no, I'm unemployed right now, and my goal is this office and to learn everything that I can.
Okay. So she's looking to start a new business, Carl. She's not currently involved in it. And the Mission
It's called
Green.
constituent care.
Yeah, constituent care. And the Mission Green, that's a kind of a charity lobby
It really is. It's an
Yeah.
advisory role. Proud to work with Weldon and his cause.
Good.
Offer whatever I can to him. He'd be great on your show, actually.
All right, hey, we'd love to have him. Just
Yep.
have him send us an email. Would you push for tracks to come to Tooele County? This is from Melanie.
That's a good one.
Would I push it? Yes. If we were going to use it, that wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I hadn't really thought about that, but that would be a Facebook poll, red or green. And it wouldn't be the worst. I think that would open up a lot as far as our roads go, as
And
long
you-
as it was being used.
Obviously, you'd probably have to look at like they probably have a minimal population before you could bring it out here, but we might be able to get some kind of spur just on the point of a mountain, and
I'd be
then
interested in how many folks are currently busing into the city daily and what that looked like. I think that would be the first metric to look at.
how
And
about
then-
cannons or trebuchets, and we could throw them over the mountain. Get a football helmet on them. It could be that navy blue with the orange, and just a gentle toss, and we put a net on the other side.
And then it'd also reduce our commuting time, right? We just pop
I'm
over the
telling you.
mountain.
And, you know, there might be a few accidents here and there, but
As long as we have a soft landing, I think we can do it.
broken windows economics, we get to hire a mop guy on the other side for that random accident.
Job creation.
That's right. I'm a Keynesian. Who knew?
Just so you're aware, the bus schedule for Tooele to Salt Lake City it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It is bad. I used to take it many years ago. If you miss that bus, you pretty much missed the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough. This is from Melanie. Hold on. Holly again. Okay, it would be extremely expensive. Holly was talking about tracks. Yes, it would, and I think that's where the population size. There's probably a minimum population size coming from tracks. They probably have an advisory board that says we require.
You could afford it if you end the war on drugs. Just saying.
Oh well, hands down, hands down.
Sure.
And imagine what we could do on the medical side if we ended the war on drugs. Imagine what we
so
could
many
do
more
with that.
services.
Yeah. What do you bring to the office? This is from Melanie again. What do you bring to the office compared to Doug Sagers?
Well, I haven't actually met my incumbent, but we have very different backgrounds and we're very different. One thing to note, and I, don't consider myself a feminist, but I am a woman, is there's been one woman who's held this office in
What?
100 years. And
You're a woman?
oh, I know. I kind of masculined up today for you guys, but yeah, I'm a girl. And I think what I bring is a recent, and I don't even want to say recent, because, God bless anybody that throws their hands into politics and then follows it through. A progressive background with the creation of industries, and learning how to start from nothing and make something different and maybe less bureaucratic. I am for the people. I do see across both sides of the aisle, and while I am a registered Democrat and running as such, I do see the need in Utah as we have a super majority on the Hill that we're going to have to work together. And across the aisle is a term that bothers me because we should always be on the aisle together, regardless of if we wear red or blue. But the idea of working together is a big one for me. And not, again, I don't want to say anybody's a bad person, but I'm not the smartest person in the room when it comes to representing a county and government. We as a voice are the smartest, and I hope to bring that. I'm not sure what I bring differently other than our backgrounds, and we have very different backgrounds.
And you came on this show. Bing. That's it. I would
And I'll
drop.
come again. If I
Good.
get elected, I will be here again. I
Good.
promise.
Well, and
I
also,
promise, I promise.
if you want to come on for one last push before election time, just reach out. We're open to
I
that.
come on with you guys any day.
If you just want to come on for 15 minutes and say, any of these questions you wanted to dig in deeper, got answers, whatever, or just one last push.
And your paranormal show. I want to come on that too. I heard rumor of this.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah. Come on that show. Hey, I would like to the cannabinoid system in the body would fall right into that. But that'll have to be after Halloween because it's spooky time right now. All
I
right.
get it. Thanks, Melanie.
I hope you got some signs available because we've already got requests in the chats.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm going to get some more.
Okay.
They're all gone.
Well,
so it makes my heart sing when someone requests a sign. It just makes me feel so good inside that someone would trust me enough to put that sign up. So I don't want to say no to anybody.
I'll put a
I
sign in
appreciate
my
that.
yard. Is there a donation page?
There is a donation page. It's
All right.
votestormysimon.com.
Go stormysimon.com, and it will also be linked in the description notes on this video, audio, whatever you're listening to this on. But
Thank you.
you can go there, donate, and request a sign, and everything else. We got a couple more. My dad's in here now.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he probably won't leave a message.
Stormy,
Hi to your dad. That's the best.
if you get with Kale, you can accept Bitcoin through your donation system as well. He's got it all figured out. So I just
Does
highly
Kale
recommend.
accept Bitcoin?
Kale accepts Bitcoin, yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to have to figure that out. That's smart because if Bitcoin goes up, his donations increase.
That it
Never knew
does.
that.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. I don't know if they're accepting Bitcoin. Then can they, as a can they exchange that Bitcoin for money on the market depending on where Bitcoin's at, and just keep
Yes.
their see?
Yeah.
You could just keep your
They should be able to. Why not?
Yeah.
play the market, be a
God bless freedom.
a money trader. Yeah, I doubt Dad'll leave a message, but he's watching right now. He's a staunch Republican.
Hi,
through and
Mr.
through.
Anderson.
Yes, you might actually know him if you've been around for a minute.
Really?
Yeah, you might. Melanie, he's from Grantsville, but Melanie says, "Thank you for your honest answers." She'll take a sign. And also tossed in a good luck. And then Ricky threw down there, votestormysimon.com.
Thanks, Melanie and Ricky. I love you guys. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Well, if you do get some signs, arrange to have them have a few dropped off here. Definitely.
I promise you that.
Yeah. And
Um,
anything else you want to plug or say before we close this up?
Well, I do have a podcast.
Okay.
It's called Lunch with Stormy, and this season, it's the second season, and I'm doing Liberty editions. So I'll be talking to some folks across our country that has run for office, lost running for office, or helped those that run for office. Because, like I talked about earlier, about wanting everyone to understand this process a little more, that inspired the Liberty editions. It should be out in the next couple of weeks. But it has been such an eye-opening experience to even raise my hand to run. And what I've learned in this time, running at a state level, I feel like if I share this information a little bit broader, that everyone who's listening or has considered or has a passion for what's happening in our state, our nation, your zip code, wherever you connect, don't forget you too can run for office. You have to be a U.S. citizen, and that's the qualification. And your voice matters, your vote matters, and you are part of our system. And never feel like I've felt before that it didn't matter. It does matter, and we all need to feel that empowerment and become a part of our system and not be victim to it.
Nice message. And I'm gonna check out your show. Maybe I can come on your show and
I would
talk
love
about
that.
liberty. And
I would have lunch with you any day.
yeah,
Me too.
I'm on the radical side, so
That's okay.
Just be
You
ready.
know, that's what makes our 240-year experiment so great. Is there's not a single two of us that are exactly the same.
very true.
And while we might connect via hashtags, we can connect to 1,000 hashtags and find people who are similar to us and create bigger passions. But I love radicals, conservatives, socialists, libertarians. I love them all, and we have to in order to make this work.
Good. Okay, so some last minute questions. Okay, Carl says, so if you're a registered Republican, would there be an option for Stormy on the ballot? Also, where would someone get a sign?
We have signs, votestormysimon.com. You can actually request one there, or the Facebook page, Vote Stormy Simon. Yes, if you're a registered Republican, on the main ballot in November, my name will be there. And just during the primaries, because I am a registered Democrat, I was not on that Republican ticket, but I'm definitely on the main ballot in November. And it's really important to go all the way down the ballot. This is a big ballot, it's a long ballot for us, but it doesn't stop with president. When you think of those that influence your day-to-day life, they're your council members, your state legislatures, your school boards, all of those things will influence you too. And it's important to go through each and every one.
Yeah.
Even Jared, we can get you one of these too.
Oh yeah. Outstanding.
I should have wore that shirt. What is wrong with me?
There you go. That's for my wife.
Outstanding. What a
And all the
beautiful.
ladies.
And all the ladies, yeah. Melanie, that's for you.
Oh no.
I like it. I like. Doug's got some fire in his belly, and I like it.
Hey, I just want to say something on Stormy's commitment. And she doesn't like to say this, but she committed to run for me and for the party a while back. She walked away from a high-paying job because there was a conflict of her writing. So she's in for this. I mean, when she's unemployed, it's because an employer gave her a choice, and she chose to serve her constituents. That is something I'm talking like a lot of digits she walked away from. That's how important this is to her and to us.
Well, I'm glad she did it. I am, and I want to put a sign in my yard, and I still haven't committed to voting yet because
No, please vote, Jared, please.
It'll be his
That's
first
what we
time.
get to do. I mean, that's our voice. It
Well-
matters so much. And yours matters too. Even
we
if
could
you're
go
against
deeper
the
into it.
people.
But I'm of the bent. I've got two kind of philosophies on this. One, if I need a leader, I'm not qualified to vote for who that is. And two, I don't like the theory of voting my neighbor's rulers. You see what I'm saying? But I might vote on this one. But if I do, I'm going to go in and I'm going to vote just for the exact things I like. And I'm not going to vote for any of the other fluff around or any of the arguments or any of that other stuff. And
Like,
my
I would
dad's
take
watching
That's
this.
enough to vote for what you're passionate about. That matters.
Yeah, and
Maybe you
it's
should run for office, Jared.
Yes, he
And
should.
take more of a role. Not that you have to, but you can, and you are worthy
Imagine.
and you're qualified.
imagine
Just
that
like-
they say he gave all the money back and never showed up once.
He never came to work. Diversity is always a good thing.
Yeah, but
It's always a good thing.
yeah, my political theory is rather radical. I understand it is, and but mine boils down to liberty, and liberty is freedom with responsibility, and that means you take self-ownership, and when you make a mistake, that's on you. You don't look to hand that mistake off to a neighbor or to a community. You eat that mistake to the best of your abilities. Now, can you seek help? Of course you can. But that's got to be a voluntary exchange in seeking that help. That's like when if you need the church to help you out with something, well, you might be required to show up on Sundays, maybe even once in a while after a Boy Scout meeting and mop the floor. But you've taken responsibility in that yourself. And that's why I think churches are better at managing the public assistance than government is, because
They are.
government has notoriously dropped the ball.
Well, I can say that the LDS Church helped me when I was a struggling mother and couldn't pay my rent, actually. And the apartment complex I was living in, I was between jobs, and they reached out to the church, and I was not LDS, and yet they came and helped me. And that's why I have such a great respect for them in our state. They help everyone, and we have a lot of benefits from living in a state with a church that helps take care of all of us.
And a strong church. That's one of the benefits of a strong church. One of the downsides is you get to see them on TV talking about how they feel that laws should be imposed. But I believe that's their right. As long as the church isn't in the actual Capitol building and they're more controlling through message, I think that's a better sacrifice that must be
It's a
made.
part of our freedoms. Part of our
Yes.
freedoms.
All right. So, do we have any new ones in? All right. And Melanie wants a shirt as well.
Deal.
Vanessa's going to be wearing your shirt. So, yeah. So, looks like we got an order for 4 shirts, lots of signs. We definitely need to have you in studio sometime.
Yes,
And,
I'd love to come in studio.
Yeah.
I
And
got strep throat this week. That was really what held me back. I know that we
you've
are
got
all
a
aware
sore
of
throat.
the pandemic in which we're living in, and respect each other that way. But yeah, I got strep throat like a 7-year-old.
Oh, God.
I've been on antibiotics for a few days now, so I'm healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, the antibiotics might help protect you from the Rona.
we don't know. Science
Yeah.
isn't there yet, but
Yeah. I don't
Could be.
think science is allowed to be there right now. We've got to,
Find out after November.
we're in a,
oh my gosh, that's terrible.
there's a lot of, there's too many political desires tied up with this ailment to know what's going on. And that's where I think we've gone politics run amok. And that's our largest issue in this nation right now is, like you said, people are arguing back and forth about it, but also we're seeing it in our day-to-day interactions, such as with a pandemic and how the response in different areas has been to that, in our economics involved in it. And hey, I hope it doesn't bring on the next Great Depression and they're writing books about it in 100 years. I hope not.
I sure hope that too. And what I really hope is everyone will love their neighbor, even if they disagree with them.
Yeah, heck yeah. Matter of fact, why do you need to know what your neighbor's politics are?
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure they'll tell you.
but anyways, yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys very much for having me. Really.
Yeah, thank you.
Send a message to us from your what is it? The Think Green? Okay, tell me again what the
Mission Green. I will
Mission
connect
Green.
you with Weldon.
Yeah, Weldon. Connect us with him. We'd definitely like to talk to him. I love the idea of anything that releases the war on drugs from our people, or I should say releases our people from the war on drugs. And I know it's a contentious issue, but if you track it, the war on drugs has brought very, like, almost zero positive to us as a populace. It may have helped out a few in certain industries, prison and
Law enforcement.
I would argue it hasn't helped out law enforcement. I would argue it hasn't. I would argue it may have helped out people who sell equipment to law enforcement, but it hasn't helped out law enforcement either. And when we meet in person and talk, I'll tell you where this idea of mine budded, and it'll be a surprising place.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, but definitely we'll bring some signs by or give us a call. We'll come get them, however you want to do it. And definitely.
Dave, I appreciate you too.
Thank you, Stormy.
Yep. Thanks for just being honest on your views, and I just appreciate it.
When's the blueberry beer going to be done?
It will be done. We've got about another 2 weeks. It'll probably be done fermenting by next weekend, and then it's got to spend 2 weeks in the bottles because I go old school. I let it bubble up in the bottles. But when it's done, I'll bring you some blueberry. But if you want to try some Saison, come on down.
Even though I don't drink, I will taste your beers.
All right.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah, I will absolutely taste your beers.
Yeah.
Blueberry beer.
That might be a beer that I like, is blueberry beer. I'm not sure, but it sounds a little more delicious than other beer.
Well, it's a blueberry IPA, so it's going to have, IPAs are notoriously, they have the bitter undertone, and then they have a citrus flavor to them.
They're thick and liquid lunch.
Okay, I'm not going to like it.
Homebrew is thick, and then this one also will have a hint of blueberry, but it's initially brewed as an ale a honey ale, so it'll be pretty strong. But when you bring the signs down, we'll crack a few open, and you can taste one.
I'll have a sip.
You won't have to drink the whole thing. You can just have a couple of nips, and then don't worry, the beer gets drank around here anyway.
We'll pour it in a glass. I won't drink it from the bottle. We can share it that way.
Yeah, we can pour a thimble for you, and then the rest of it in a growler for
That's
me.
right. That's right. I'm the thimble drinker.
Heck yeah, and I'd like to get more people telling me what they think of my beer.
Well, I'll be a good test, because if you can get me to like it, then you've made an extremely good beer.
All right, outstanding. So, Carl Butler, this will be our last comment for the night. Okay, then we gotta let Stormy go. It's 9:20. This podcast session needs to be shared to the masses. I saw she was a Democrat and wasn't going to vote for her until this podcast. Sorry, got choked up for a minute. We need some music in the background. Some.
Thank you, Carl.
So
that means a lot to me.
Until this podcast showed her views on many good topics. Good job. Outstanding. Yeah, I agree, Carl. She's outstanding.
Awesome.
And then Holly says Oktoberfest is happening at UMC next month. Beer. All right, Holly, I agree.
I love Holly now too.
Yeah. Okay.
Carl, that's the best. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So the podcast makes an impact, and that's how it needs to be.
Yeah, and everybody, go ahead. Feel free to share this. You'll never be in trouble for sharing anything we do. That's for sure. And we do this as a public service. Be it get information out or just me telling bad jokes. That's what we do.
We take either. Yeah. Both are entertaining.
I like to throw them. I like to mix them in together. But this was a great interview, Stormy. Thank you for coming on. And thank you for an enlightening view. I like that. And and anytime right before vote, if you want, give us a holler. Even if you just need to jump on 15 minutes and get a point across, we'll fire the engine up and get the point across.
I'd like you both to come on Liberty Lunch.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Super.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
We could have a round table about
all kinds of stuff.
What it's like starting podcasts.
Yeah. And our political views. I think this was great.
Yeah.
And how to teach people to get along anyway.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. You guys have a good night, and we'll see you soon when we get some sign and beer exchange.
Stay healthy.
That's right. And thank you, Carl, Milena, Ricky, Vanessa, Melanie, Holly.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the questions. And
remembered all those names.
I did.
Hopefully I never have to. Barely read them.
And Jared and David and your dad.
Oh, and the old man. Yeah, he didn't say anything. He usually sits and watches.
He's absorbing.
Yeah.
He's a good dad.
He's a good old man. He's all right. Right. All right, thank you so much. And you guys, everyone, have a great night.
Take care.
You too. Thanks, you guys.
Yep. Bye-bye.